Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Welcome back to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Be sure to check us out online on our Facebook page and Instagram at Couples Synergy or our website, couplesynergy.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experience helping thousands of couples transform their relationships for nearly 20 years.
You know, everyone says you should work on your relationship, but nobody teaches us how. So we've created this podcast to teach people what they can do to create the relationship they've always dreamed of
with the partner they fell in love with. On today's episode, Jean and I will be talking about how to find the right person to guide you when looking for relationship advice.
This is such an important topic because you have so many options these days, and it is very difficult to vet a person.
Yeah.
If you look at the psychology field, people can have letters behind their names. They can be an LMFT, a licensed marriage and family counselor.
They can have an LCSW, licensed clinical social worker degree. They can have a LCPC, licensed clinical professional counselor degree. They can have a PhD as well. They can have a PsyD, which is a doctorate of clinical psychology. That's PsyD. That's the doctorate that I have. They could have they could have a ministry degree as well, a DMin or an educational degree too. So there are a lot of different degrees that people can have, but when it comes to marital work and relationship work, there isn't any special certification.
Or training.
Now, the LMFT, Licensed Marriage and Family Therapy degree, that program is geared more towards relationships and families, all right? But there is no certification or licensing that says, yes, I am certified by whatever state or governing body to provide marital work.
And even under some of those licensures are different master's programs.
Right.
So like I have a master's degree in clinical psychology, but a lot of people have master's degrees in counseling,
right,
or community counseling, or
spiritual counseling, right.
There's different disciplines all around. And so I would actually say that is maybe the least indicating thing. And then if we go into the coaching world, and here's what I love about the coaching world. The coaching world is a place where somebody can have some life experience that they would like to pass on. There is no governing body to the coaching world. Someone could go through a divorce and say, hey, I want to coach people through divorce. No training, no background, nothing.
There are coaching certificate programs out there.
But they're self-governing.
They're self-governing. You don't have to have a certification in order to say that you're a coach and you're providing those services for people.
Right. And then there's coaches who they've become experts in their field, and so then they wanted to pass that on. So there's people who are like a little bit of life experience that they're passionate about, and then there's people, and I would say we're in that category where we have degrees. We've been doing this work for 20 years. We've developed a method. We have done the reps. And so we have something to offer that anyone that just says, I'm a relationship coach or I'm a therapist, probably doesn't have.
You know, we were podcasting some financial experts, financial advisors. And, you know, it's very interesting. It was very similar, you know, in their field. There are people who are really good at what they do, and then there are people who have only been doing it for a little bit, you know. And one of the things that they said is that, you know, you just need to make sure that it is a good fit, right? In our field, it's a very personal business. It is about your relationship. And for a lot of people, the relationship is on the line. Maybe this is last-ditch effort before they get divorced. And so when you are seeking out someone to be able to guide you, you need to make sure that there's a personal connection, right? That you feel comfortable and connected with this person, that they are going to be able to provide you the best advice possible so that you guys have the information to make the best choices for your relationship.
So we just sort of said certification is not necessarily the only thing to look at. And I would even say how long someone's been doing this is not really exactly also a good indicator. There are people doing this work for a very long time that never really got very skilled at it. There's people doing this work for a shorter period of time that are very intuitive and they thrive in learning about it, and they're always reading books and staying up to date. I think, a great example of a relationship coach is Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins, he's sort of one of the pioneering coaches in the coaching field. And he said, I want to know more than everyone else that's out there. So I read all their books. So now that I've read all their books, I have all that information. And that was always his goal, is to be like at the top. And I think that is something that is important to look at is, the person you're working with, how passionate are they about, really specifically too, about relationship coaching and marriage coaching, if that's what you're looking for. How do they stay on top of things? How do they work on that in their own lives? And that might seem like a very personal question, but I think it's very valid. So Ray and I, we are a blended family. We've been married, it'll be 23 years. In February, we dated the year before that. So our relationship is 24 years old. But besides that, we live and breathe this stuff. We are constantly learning, and we're constantly learning through our own relationship and bringing that back. And we've had the privilege of having the insight into lots and lots and lots, thousands of couples, really intimate details of their lives. And so it is difficult to vet things. And usually when you're in the market for finding someone to help you with your relationship, you know nothing. It's like, how often do I buy a car? I don't know. I've owned maybe like 10 cars. I'm not an expert. When I have to go buy a car, it doesn't always feel so good. I always feel like, oh, am I getting taken advantage of? I really don't know the best way to do this. And so that's why we're talking about this topic, because you don't know. It's like choosing a divorce attorney. How do you do that? Because when you're in the market, you don't really know that they're not all equal, right?
And I think a lot of times people go by, word of mouth. This person, is vetting or has used that person, and so maybe you're more inclined to give them your trust, right? And that's absolutely fine. But I think to Jean's point, you have to ask them the personal questions that are necessary in order for you to feel that personal connection. How do they approach things in their own relationship, right? And what are some of the struggles and challenges that they've gone through personally? Because, it's one thing to really pick up a book, open up a book, learn everything in the book. But then when it comes to practical application, it's not a cookie cutter kind of approach here. Each couple that we work with is very different and very unique. And we approach them very uniquely, each of them, and understanding all of their dynamics so that we can give them the best information possible so that they can work through their issues in the relationship.
I would add, too, that even if someone is not currently in a relationship and maybe they've gone through a divorce, they may have gone through that divorce because they learned and grew through the relationship they were in and sort of outgrew it, and their partner wasn't really on board. We don't have control over that with our partners. And so that is not necessarily an indicator if they're going to be a good therapist or coach for you. It's something different, and that's why it's so hard to figure out, what is a good fit. So one of the things that we did is we really believe in working as a couple with couples, and there are plenty of people who are solo therapists or solo coaches, and again, that really depends on the fit and the situation you're dealing with. Let's talk about the reason we decided to work as a couple with couples, because we certainly did that work as solo practitioners.
Right. So when a couple comes together, they form something called the couple personality, which is a separate entity than each of them as individuals, right? So, when you are working with a couple in the same room or the same virtual room, you're dealing with a completely separate entity here. And a lot of times it's very difficult for one person to balance those dynamics, especially when it comes to gender bias, right? Which is, the topic of my dissertation back when I was doing all that studying. But, the fact that when a couple comes in to see one individual person, already off the bat, there's a gender bias, there's gender imbalance that is occurring, right? And so we started with our model and working with couples to balance that. I work with the husbands and Jane works with the wives, and we, in that way, we're able to kind of bypass any gender bias that occurs and be able to actually dive into, any of the challenges that the couple are facing right off the bat.
Yeah, it's such a complex dynamic that marriage counseling actually has the lowest success rate of all the counselors.
That absolutely is correct, right?
And it also can promote divorce within a relationship because it's not an easy process. And, I love what that guy, Tim, said yesterday, the financial guy, about if the person you're going to, whether it's a financial person or a therapist or a coach, agrees with everything you say, it's probably not a valuable fit for you because all they're doing is letting you do what you've always done. And so how can you do something different? And one of the ways that we view relationship work is it's like a taking someone from what they've learned in their developmental stages and domestication with their parents and helping them learn how to have these more mature relationships that are developmental, and every relationship goes through these stages. And so as a couple, we provide both the masculine and feminine energy, just like most people had as children growing up. Not everybody, but there's nothing missing in the component of that. And really, there is only two winners or two losers in the scenario. There is not a competition or a winner and loser. And I really love Gabe and Myra's testimony on our website because Gabe said, I thought I was going to go in there and they were going to believe everything I said and be on my side and teach my wife how she needed to change. And he realized
a rude awakening
that he was actually contributing at least half to the dynamics, which is what we know. And so we know it's important for both people to feel safe and respected, to be heard, to have their own mentor, which is why we do the individual work and the couples work, because you have to grow as an individual in order to impact the couple's personality.
Absolutely. And, we're not knocking anyone out there, that is working individually. We're not knocking anybody out there that doesn't have any type of, background in the psychological field. What we're saying is that, as a consumer, as a couple that is seeking out someone that wants guidance on how to overcome their challenges, you can't just go with the first person that, you run into. You really have to do due diligence. You've got to, vet people, really understand how they work, what their model is, and also if it's a personal fit, you feel comfortable talking about really vulnerable and private things, right? I mean, when you go to a financial analyst or financial advisor, you're not going to keep information from them about your finances because they're not going to be able to guide you in the best way possible. So you have to be able to feel comfortable in order to talk about those things.
Also, another thing to consider is that at different stages in your relationship, you're going to have different needs. And so when I think about going to a personal trainer, and I have had lots of personal trainers, and some I will fire very quickly because it's just not a good fit. And, for me working out, I really need to be in the right headspace. And if I'm with someone who's annoying to me, then they're actually impeding my progress, which I don't want. In fact, I would prefer a personality that I like the person and want to spend an hour with them, even if they're not super great technologically at telling me, what to eat or whatever, but they're there with me and they're motivating me, and that's important to me. And I know that about myself because I've been with lots of trainers. And at other times, I probably would need a trainer. In my first trainer, Marcus, you were awesome. He was super strict. I mean, he had a plan. He worked the plan. He kept me on my path, and he didn't care what I thought or felt, or blah, blah, blah. And that was my first experience with a trainer. I couldn't even appreciate what a good trainer he was back then, now that I've been through so many more. And so you may find at times in your relationship, you want a different perspective or a different person. Some people work in a very strict model where they're going to teach you, I statements and some basic communication skills, and that might be appropriate for where you're at. Other people, like where the place where we're at, we like to teach people how you heal through relationship. How do you take all this pain that you experience throughout your entire life, because we get wounded through relationship and we heal through relationship, but nobody teaches us how to do that. And that's our goal. Our goal is to teach couples how to not just be appropriate in the room together or solve the surfacey problems. We want them diving really deep and going through a healing process, which creates this really strong merger and bond. But you might not be at that place or at that level, and that might be not a good fit for you. And so where you're at is just as important as what the therapist or coach is bringing to you. You want to find something that's a good fit.
I think that's a really great point, that, there are different stages of development that a couple, is in their relationship. And, finding the right provider that would be able to assess that and to be able to let you know whether they are able to meet your needs, right? You don't want to just go with someone who says, yeah, absolutely, I can work with anybody, because that's not true. We know that we can't work with everybody. And that is why, when we do sit down for our consultations, we are assessing where the couple is at, what stage of the relationship they're at, what developmental stages that they're going through, and if we are able to meet their needs, if we are able to provide the services and guidance that they need at the level that they're at.
Yeah, we kind of think about it as an analogy with the physical body. If somebody has a broken leg, they're going to come in and they're going to get treatment, and the leg's going to heal and they're going to be done. And that's one way to use a coach or a therapist. Another way is there is a chronic illness, diabetes or lupus or something like that, that as life changes and fluxes, you need to be checking in and getting back on course. That is another way to use a therapist or a coach. And the third way is you're healthy and nothing hurts and you're free of injury and you're free of disease, but you want to optimize. You want to be the best. So you go and you hire a personal trainer because you want to compete in a marathon or compete in something or just be the best that you can be in your physical health. And so those three stages, we look at that when we're assessing a couple, like where are they really at? And sometimes people have a misconception about doing this work that they're trying so hard to control their partner. And if they just had another person to control their partner, then their partner would feel better and everything would be fine. A lot of people think that coming through the door, that the problem is there because we see like this, we don't see like this. And that's another thing we're looking at is, are they able to, really get on board in a way that, Dr. Ray was saying, of being open and honest and vulnerable so we can really help them.
So we hope that we've been able to answer any questions that you might have. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask us directly when searching for the right provider for you, please feel free to send any questions to contact@couplesynergy.com. We'd be more than happy to help you out.
You can also go to our website and book a call. And those calls, those are free consultations, and pick our brains. And, that's a very responsible thing to do in trying to decide. And, there's that concept like three people, like interview three people.
Right.
And then you'll have a better sense because, like when I go into, talking to a financial person. I don't know anything. And if that person educates me, I'm like, oh, I want them to guide me and lead me. I don't want someone that's just going to say, okay, here's your stuff. Maybe you could do this or that. I want them to have a plan. That's
Absolutely.
important to me.
Right.
So you can always book a call with us.
So website is couplesynergy.com. You can go on there and book a call with us, for a consultation. We want to wholeheartedly thank you so much for joining us today on Couples Synergy. Our passion is in helping couples and people have happy and healthy relationships, and this podcast gives us a fun way of bringing our knowledge and expertise to you, our listeners.
And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
For all of you listening, please subscribe to our podcast and please leave us a review. It helps us out very much. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, again, please email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. For more information about Couples Synergy and our programs such as the Couples Weekend Intensive, our online community called Connections, and our premier program called Couple to Couple, look us up online at couplesynergy.com. Until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.